viewing, so just please note that this is being recorded. And we will also ask everyone to make sure that their microphones are muted throughout the duration of today's webinar. Please feel free to ask questions at any time in the chat box, but we're going to just ask everyone, since we have so many people on, just to remain muted for the duration of today's webinar. And without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Leah Hermans, who's going to manage today's webinar. Leah? Leah, if you are out there, you are on mute.
All right, testing. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
All right, I think we're in action now. So thanks, Kari. I just want to welcome everybody. My name is Leah Hermans. I am the program manager for On-Farm Trials. So along with a team of folks on the project branch, we manage the competition and the awards for this program. So today I'm just going to take a little bit of time to give you an overview of the program and of this year's competition. And as Kari mentioned, we're going to have time for questions and answers at the end of this presentation. So feel free just to enter your questions into the chat box. And like you said, the meeting's being recorded. We plan on making the recording and the slides available. They'll be posted to our website. Slides usually go up within a couple of days. The recording can take a bit longer. And just want to really start by saying thank you all for your interest. The strength of this program is really built on the strength of your proposals and your project ideas. And so we're just really gratefully took the time today to learn a little bit more about our program, and thank you for your interest in applying. So I'll just dive right in and start with some background on the program. On-Farm Trials was originally authorized in the 2018 Farm Bill, so this is our third competition. It's a component of the Conservation Innovation Grants Program, which is itself part of the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, known around here as EQIP. The On-Farm Trials competition includes the Soil Health Demo Trial Priority, which is a subcomponent for projects that strictly relate to the implementation of soil health practices and systems. And our soil health demo projects require some unique responsibilities on the part of the grantee that I'll get into a little bit later.
Leah, I'm still showing that the sort of introductory slide with just the title of the webinar.
Oh, no. Okay, let me see if I can fix that. I'm going to stop sharing and try to reshare again.
Okay.
All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Just give me one moment here. All right, can you see my slides advanced now?
I think we're in business. We are on the On-Farm Trials overview slide.
Perfect. Okay. So I think I covered this information as the overview, and then I will start by, I think it's helpful to upfront make some distinctions between CIG Classic, which is the program as it existed since 2004, and then this newer On-Farm Trials program. CIG Classic funds the development and piloting of new approaches and technologies. So the key here is it's really for more early stages of exploration. And we understand that there's not necessarily a guarantee that the projects will be successful. So in cases where more field tests should be done before the practice is scaled, CIG Classic will probably be a better fit. On-Farm Trials funds the adoption and evaluation of innovative technologies that have a known benefit and are ready to be scaled up. And On-Farm Trials also has some structural components that its projects need to have, the big one being that our awardees need to make incentive payments to participating producers. Whereas for CIG Classic project funding rarely is provided directly to our producers. Here we have just a snapshot of last year's competition and the breakdown of applications we received. As you can see, we received just under 100 proposals. So we got 97 proposals submitted, and of those, we funded 14 projects for a total of just under $25 million. And here we have some of the application essentials that you'll need to know in order to get started. The first place to start for anyone interested in the program is really just to read the notice of funding opportunity. And that can be found on grants. Oops, sorry, my slides jumped ahead there. That can be found on grants.gov using just a simple key search, or you can look it up on grants.gov with the nice long opportunity number listed here. One really big change this year is that we are no longer accepting proposals through grants.gov. So all applications need to be submitted through the programs portal. The notice of funding opportunity has details on how to get to the portal and what you'll need for submitting your application there. Also, once you get into the portal, there's a help tab that has really a clear step-by-step instructions for how to navigate the new platform. And it's worth mentioning here that you will need one person to go in and submit that proposal, and that person needs level 2 e-authentication in order to create the account. Getting this level 2 e-authentication can take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. So we encourage you to keep that time restriction in mind and get started on getting that right away. And I just want to repeat that we are only accepting proposals through the programs portal this year. None will be accepted via email or any other route. And we have a proposal deadline of June 21st. So let's talk a little bit about funding. This year we have another $25 million that has been made available, at least 10 million of which will be for the soil health demo priority. Just like last year, we have a maximum award size of $5 million and a minimum award size of $250,000, and projects can last from 3 to 5 years in duration. Here are our priorities for this year. You may notice that irrigation management technologies and strategies, and soil health demonstration trials have broadly remained the same from last year. However, there have been some changes within each priority. And then we did add the new climate smart agriculture solutions as a priority this year. This replaced our precision ag priority. But there is some language that's been added to the management technologies and strategies priority to include some projects that are precision agriculture related. The first thing to do when you read through the notice of funding opportunity is look through the description of each of those proposals to make sure your project addresses one of them. It is often the case that some projects can address multiple priorities, and we do require that applicants select just one priority under which your proposal will be competed, and that will determine which panel of experts is going to review projects. Or, I'm sorry, your proposal. All right, so now I want to take a minute to talk about the soil health demo priority specifically. As I mentioned before, there's some unique things that are specific to this priority. So at least $10 million of the total on-farm trials funding is intended for projects under the soil health demo priority. And the goal of this priority is to support the more widespread adoption of soil health management systems and practices. The biggest extra piece here is related to evaluation protocol. We work with our awardees to use consistent evaluation protocols and methods for assessing soil carbon changes and other soil health outcomes, including economic outcomes. And so there's a robust evaluation piece that's standardized for our soil health demo trials. Our other priorities also have an evaluation requirement, but it's not necessarily as prescriptive. And the last thing I want to note about the soil health demo trial priority is that any producer who participates in it will need to consent to NRCS using data for a congressionally mandated report. All right, so there are three big pieces to each on-farm trial project. The first is that incentive payments are made to producers by the grantees. So we expect that financial assistance in the form of an incentive payment will come from the grantee or our partners directly to the producers. NRCS is not involved in that payment process. The grantees will also provide technical assistance to producers to assist with implementing the innovation practices. And there are some circumstances under which NRCS can assist with technical assistance, but we're really giving priority consideration to proposals where all the technical assistance is provided from the awardee or the partners on the project. And lastly, there's an evaluation component where our grantees will assess the natural resource and economic and, to the extent possible, social outcomes of the on-farm trials. So applicants must also have the capacity for this evaluation piece or be willing and able to partner with somebody who does. Our lead applicants often work with partners to complete one or more of these pieces, but they will be responsible for coordinating all three of these elements. So now's probably a good time to note that the statute of this program allows NRCS to implement on-farm trials in one of two ways, either ourselves with input from the private sector or through our partners and awardees applicants. This year, as in the past 2 years, we are going with the latter option of having it implemented through our partners. So we're really looking for partners who can help the agency identify the most promising innovative technologies and approaches. And most of the work activities will be carried out by our awardees. So we're looking for folks who can step up and who have the access to producer networks, who can find participating producers, and who can handle the technical assistance either by themselves or with partners, to really get these activities on the ground, get them evaluated, and help us understand how successful the conservation activities are. Okay, so this is just a flyover slide of a few typical events in an on-farm trials project. The first events are just kind of our dates that will start the project. As I mentioned, proposals are due June 21st, and we anticipate making the announcement of which proposals were selected in October. Usually takes several months to get the award agreements finalized. So right now we're estimating that in January, the agreements will be finalized and projects can begin. So to kick off a project, the awardee will consult with an NRCS technical contact who is assigned to the project. And then after that, partners usually start by identifying producers. I say usually because sometimes partners will already have the producers selected. We do often get asked whether producers need to be identified in the proposal. They do not, but applicants do need to clearly describe their plan to recruit producers and give some information about what producers they're targeting. So for example, how many and where, and give details if they plan on recruiting historically underserved producers. So then, yeah, either way, once the agreements are finalized and producers are selected, the awardees will work with NRCS to confirm that the producers are eligible to receive the incentive payments. I can give a little bit more detail on those, what the eligibility entails in just a couple slides. But then the real work gets moving and partners make those incentive payments to participating producers. The partners provide the technical assistance to implement the trials, and over time they evaluate the conservation and economic and social benefits of the trials. And then also throughout their project, awardees are required to submit semi-annual progress reports, annual financial reports, and then ultimately the final reports. All right, let's talk about eligible entities. There are 3 broad categories of eligible entities. The first one is private entities whose primary business is related to agriculture. The second is NGOs with experience working with agricultural producers. And then the third would be non-federal government agencies. So for example, public universities would often fall under the non-federal government agency. Private universities can apply as NGOs with experience working with ag producers. And then small or large businesses could fit as private entities if their primary business is related to agriculture. All right, as I mentioned, here are the requirements for participating producers who receive an incentive payment. They must be EQIP eligible, so including they need to be in compliance with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation provisions. And in addition, they must meet the adjusted gross income requirement of the Farm Bill. There is the potential to request and receive a waiver for this, but that's only going to be for lands of special environmental significance, which we don't anticipate will often be needed or the case here in our on-farm trials project. Let's see, our awardees will work with NRCS staff to ensure that all the producers that are receiving these on-farm trials incentive payments meet the eligibility requirements, and that needs to be done before any payments are made. Another question we get, and something worth noting, is that the incentive payments that the producers receive from an on-farm trial grant do not count towards that producer's EQIP payment limitation. So NRCS will work with our awardee to complete the producer eligibility checks. We don't anticipate that there shouldn't be any additional cost associated with this built into the budgets. All right, so this slide outlines in broad strokes the expected NRCS involvement in the project. NRCS will help to conduct the NEPA activities, the environmental evaluations. They will assist with doing the producer eligibility checks. NRCS also assigns a technical contact that will give general technical oversight of the project. So these are the responsibilities of NRCS, but we really look to the lead partners to help coordinating with NRCS to get all of these done. For matching funds, this program does have a match requirement. There's a minimum of 25% of the federal share of the agreement required in partner match. So our peer panels will be looking to evaluate the magnitude and significance of the match as part of the project evaluation criteria. Some examples of value-added match could be producer outreach and education, communication activities, and environmental monitoring. And so I just want to end with some kind of additional key considerations. The first very big one is that we are giving priority consideration to projects that meaningfully include historically underserved producers. We have requested that applicants really give specific details this year on how they will involve historically underserved producers if they would like to qualify for this priority consideration. So, if you just mentioned that you plan to or hope to work with historically underserved producers, that's not going to count to assist you in getting that priority consideration. And we just really want to emphasize that we strongly encourage the meaningful involvement of historically underserved producers in our projects. The second key consideration is that no on-farm trials funding can be used to pay for partner indirect cost. So indirect costs cannot be included in the federal portion of your budget, but they can be used as match. This is a statutory limitation that we have. And so while indirect costs are not allowed in the federal portion of the budget, direct administrative expenses are allowable cost. For folks who may not be familiar with the difference between direct cost and indirect cost, In our notice of funding opportunity, there is a link to Grants 101 training that has a section on cost principles. So you can learn all about the differences of direct cost and indirect cost, and would encourage folks to take a look at that if they're not used to managing or putting together budgets for federal grants. All right, so with that, we can move to the question or answer portion of this webinar. Again, just feel free to type your questions into the chat box. We'll try to get to as many as possible today, but for those questions that we're not able to get to, we're going to add them to our frequently asked questions document that will be posted to our website. And if you have questions that are, really just specific to your project and, might not be appropriate for like a larger forum, you can feel free just to email them to us. I've put our email address on the slide here, but it's nrcscig@usda.gov. And so we can help you answer some more specific questions to your project. And so with that, I will ask my colleagues, Kari and Lucas, if you're on, to help me with going through the questions that we have in the chat box.
All right, thanks, Leah. This is Kari Cohen. I'm the project's branch chief here at NRCS and ultimately have responsibility over CIG as well as our CPP and a few other programs. I'm going to let Leah catch her breath and get a drink of water and handle this first question that came in, which is talking about CIG Classic. And there was another question about CIG Classic as well. Leah mentioned CIG Classic earlier and differentiated the traditional CIG Classic component of our program from this on-farm trials component. CIG Classic is not out yet, the national competition. It's going to be out very soon, as in probably next week. And there will be a deadline associated with that. It'll be open for 60 days from the day that it is open. So stay tuned. If you feel like CIG Classic is a better home for your proposal. All right, we've got a question here from Laura about having trouble getting into the application. Leah mentioned that we are, for the first time, only accepting CIG applications this year and in years forward through what we call the programs portal. If anyone's familiar with the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP, we've been accepting proposals for that program through the portal for some time. We went through quite a bit of effort to add conservation innovation grants into the portal. We feel like this is going to be a much better experience for users and partners. But Laura here is having a little bit of trouble getting into the portal application. So I'm going to turn it over to another colleague of ours, Havala Schumacher, who is on with us today, and she's really our portal guru. Havala, do you want to just talk a little bit about what folks can do if they're having trouble getting into the portal?
Yep, absolutely. So it sounds like Laura already has EOF level 2 access, which is the first thing that you need. And the process for getting that is described in the notice of funding opportunity. So if you're looking for portal access, first thing is to get your EOF. Second thing is that it sounds like if you are we kind of have three options in the portal window. One is for NRCS staff, one is for applicants, partners, and awardees, and one is for new users. If you already have RCPP portal access for our different program, our sister program, but are requesting SIG access, do go ahead and click that start here under new users and request access specific to the SIG program. I will get that request, I'll approve that request, and you should be good to go. If you still can't get in, email that nrcscig@usda.gov email address below. I can either troubleshoot a little bit with you, or I can give you the address of our help desk and they can move you right along.
Thank you, Havala. This will be a bit of a learning curve for our partners that are not familiar with the portal. But again, I think ultimately everyone will appreciate a much smoother and more streamlined application process versus uploading your PDF and all these different forms through grants.gov. Okay, the next question is asking for clarification about Leah's comment about CIG Classic versus on-farm trials. And Caroline here is asking can on-farm trials funding be used to fund the development of new technologies, or are we really just testing relatively mature technologies? Leah, do you want to try to expand on your comments earlier, or I can take it as well?
Well, I can start by giving the short answer is on-farm trials is definitely not looking to fund the development of new technologies. That would be more appropriate for CIG Classic. We are looking to fund projects that have some evidence that shows that they work, and it will be up to the applicant to give some information about what evidence exists or how we know how well we know the practice to work. But yes, we're looking to fund stuff that does have a known conservation benefit.
Very good. It's a key distinction between CIG Classic, again, early stage, in some cases can be considered on-farm research, pilots, demonstrations, versus on-farm trials, where we're really funding, as Leah says, approaches and technologies and systems that we know have a conservation benefit, but for whatever reason really haven't been widely adopted in a given geography and in a given agricultural sector or something like that. So if you have specific questions about, which program component you want to get into, just read very carefully the two funding announcements. CIG Classic, as I mentioned, is going to be out next week, and then you can certainly follow up any questions. Okay, so there was a question here about Leah referring to producers, agricultural producers, and do we mean that we should have partner producers with farms included in the proposal? Leah, do you want to take that one?
So if I understand it right, then you do not need to have the producers identified in the proposal. The producers wouldn't be considered partners. When we talk about partners, we're talking about partners that are going to be contributing some form of match or assisting with the technical assistance that would be provided to producers or assisting with the evaluation piece. But the producer involvement does not need to be identified in the proposal. That can be determined after the award is made.
That's a very good point and an interesting interpretation of the question, which I interpret a different way, but I totally see how that, that's a good way to answer that. I would just add to that on-farm trials projects must take place on farms, ranches, forest lands. A lot of CIG Classic projects take place on university lands, extension lands, or a single farm or field even. On-farm trials, we're really looking at, again, putting these technologies, these approaches, these practices and systems on multiple farms, multiple ranches, as appropriate, and then doing an evaluation of the benefits of the practices and systems. People often ask how many producers should we have in our projects. We've seen proposals with 5 producers all the way up to 100 to 200 producers. So it really depends on, what folks are doing in their project and what natural resource concern or priority they're addressing, and the structure of their project. But this shouldn't be a thing where it's just happening on a single farm or a single field. It's really meant to, again, increase the adoption of these technologies and approaches while also doing this evaluation about it. So the next question is referring to the evaluation, and it's asking, can we subcontract with folks from outside the United States to do the project evaluation? And Leah, I'm not sure the answer to that actually, but I don't know if you do.
I do not know off the top of my head. No, we can look that up and include it in the frequently asked questions though, or in our question and answer document. Very
good. Mary's asking, the incentive payments that you mentioned, Leah, that go to producers, should they be one-time payments or can they be paid out over time?
So I believe they can be either one time or paid out over time. We're really looking for our applicants to put together the structure of those incentive payments and kind of outline that in the proposal, but there's not one set way those incentive payments are going to look.
That's right. And one thing we get asked a lot, and I don't see it here yet, is who is making these incentive payments to producers? We have to have incentive payments to producers as a part of these projects. It's in the on-farm trial statute. And the answer to that is it's really incumbent upon the lead partner to figure out how to make those payments to producers. These are not going to be transmitted through contracts between NRCS and participating producers. All of the responsibility for making those incentive payments is on the shoulders of the lead partner. So something very important to understand. NRCS also doesn't provide any contracting templates or anything like that. We're really looking for the lead partner to have the capacity and capability to have some sort of contractual relationship with these participating producers to provide those incentive payments. Leah, can soil and water conservation districts be considered a partner for on-farm trials, or would a different partner need to take the lead?
I believe that soil and water conservation districts can apply as the primary partner, and I think just looking back over our
Yeah, but we have had
NGOs.
we have had soil and water conservation districts receive awards before, so the answer to that is absolutely yes.
Yeah, I believe they would apply as, would it be non-federal government agencies?
Exactly. Obviously, soil and water conservation districts are kind of a quasi-governmental entity. They would fall into somewhere between that category you just mentioned and a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Okay, someone's asking about the adjusted gross income amounts. I believe in the 2018 Farm Bill, it's $900,000, but you know, all that can be sorted out. You know, when partner gets an award, and if you're trying to have a particular producer engaged in the project that is over the AGI, you know, they'll have gotten a determination from our sister agency, the Farm Service Agency, and all that will be sorted out in the future. But I believe that the 2018 Farm Bill amount is $900,000. Leah, someone's asking how much funding is expected to be allocated for incentive payments?
There's not a prescripted amount that needs to go to incentive payments. We do expect that that funding will come from the federal portion of the budget, but we don't have any set amount that should go to incentive payments versus technical assistance versus evaluations.
Very good. So someone's asking about the definition of historically underserved producers. If you read carefully in the notice of funding opportunity, we actually link to the NRCS page that defines historically underserved producers. But off the top of my head, there's 4 sort of types of producers that make up that definition. It's socially disadvantaged producers, veterans, beginning farmers, and I believe, what is the 4th one? I believe it's folks in low income situations, but I'll have to swing back through that website. But I think those are the 4 that make up the historically underserved producer definition. Let's see. Someone's asking, do disabled producers, are they considered historically underserved? The answer to that is no, they're not a part of that definition, again, which is very specific and is linked to in the NFO. Can non-US companies apply to be the lead partner? And I believe the answer to that is no. It's got to be a US based entity. So Ryan had a question that kind of got cut off. Oh, there it says, can you discuss more of the goals of climate smart ag practices? and management technologies and strategy priority areas and how they have changed. So if those of you familiar with the on-farm trials program, last year we had a precision ag priority area. That one this year got folded into the management technologies and strategy priority. And that priority really is a catch-all for some of the list of, congressional interests that are reflected in the on-farm trial statute. So there's all sorts of things that can qualify under the management and technology and strategy priority area. Some of the types of things are listed in the NFO, but there are others that I'm sure you all can be thinking of. When it comes to climate smart ag practices, there's a laundry list of the types of things that we're looking for through that priority area. What we are explicitly not looking for through the climate smart ag solutions priority area are soil health type practices. All of those should go through the soil health demo trial priority, and everything else that can be considered a climate smart ag practice or system like those that we have listed in the NFO should go under that climate smart ag priority. Pete is asking Leah, what are the unique requirements of the soil health demo trial in terms of soil carbon monitoring and evaluation?
So I don't have an answer for that off the top of my head, but we do have a technical note that is linked both in the notice of funding opportunity and on our on-farm trials website that gives more information on that.
Exactly. There is a whole lot of information that is linked to there in the NFO about the requirements and the protocols for lead partners that are participating in the soil health demo trial. Let's see. Can you submit a CIG Classic and on-farm trial proposal in the same cycle, Leah?
You absolutely can, but if you're submitting it for the same project, it likely won't make sense under both competitions, given the differences between the two competitions. But if you have two distinct projects, one that's a good fit for on-farm trials and one that's a good fit for CIG Classic, you're welcome to submit both proposals.
Very good. Next question. Is it necessary to have an expert identified to oversee the social analysis at the time of proposal submission? Remember that for these on-farm trials projects, there are two required evaluations, the conservation or environmental evaluation, and then also the economic or financial evaluation. Social analysis or evaluation is optional, but if it is committed to in the proposal and we select a proposal, then it is expected that the partner is going to carry out that social evaluation. And so it's really up to you all if you want to do that. We've been very pleased in the past with the uptake on those social evaluations. We feel it's really important to understand why producers are choosing or not choosing to adopt conservation approaches and technologies. But again, it's optional, but if it is included, it's something that lead partners have committed to when we select a proposal. There's a question here about producer incentives and how they should be structured. Again, there's some information in the funding announcement about this and some of the things that can go into a producer incentive payment. But again, as the NFO states, we are asking our applicants to explain in their proposal their proposed makeup of producer incentive payments. There's a specific question here about the risk of foregone income versus actual foregone income. It's really up to applicants to justify and explain why they think any particular component of an incentive payment should be a part of an incentive payment. So again, it's a little bit left open, but we've done it this way in the past and it's been pretty successful. But folks just really need to be able to justify, why and how much they want to pay producers to participate in their projects. Marty's asking, seems that there's overlap between the climate smart and soil health priority categories. I spoke about this a little bit. Our intention was to make sure that there is no overlap. Again, the soil health demo trial is very focused on soil health systems and practices, very focused on this unique set of protocols and processes that folks have to follow to measure soil carbon changes and other soil health components. The climate smart priority is really intended for non-soil health projects. So again, please think very carefully about which priority to apply to. Leah, Danielle's asking, what do we need to get a project approved at a 4 or 5 year length versus a 3-year length?
So there isn't any specific approval form to get a 4 or 5 year project approved. We really just want you to justify in your proposal why you would need the additional time. So if it's clear from the proposal and your milestones and deliverables and project timeline that the 4 or 5 years would be necessary, that's all that we ask for.
Very good. Someone is asking about the climate smart ag solutions priority. Are the soil sampling requirements the same as for the soil health demo trial? And again, I see a couple more questions about this. There could be soil sampling that's required, as part of your project under the climate smart ag solutions priority. But it's not required that they follow those very strict protocols that we have in place for the soil health demo trial. The reason why we have those in place for the soil health demonstration trial is we are trying to build as an agency this consistent set of metrics, of information, of data for soil health practices and systems across the country. If you have a project that is not in the soil health demo trial, it's not going to be a part of that data set that we're collecting. And so there's more flexibility. Although we do mention that that what we call the Blue Book, this USDA issued document called the Quantifying Greenhouse Gas Fluxes in Ag and Forestry that explains, broadly the methods that folks should use to quantify greenhouse gas fluxes. Yes, people need to follow that guidance if they're going to be doing a project through the Climate Smart Ag Solutions priority. Okay, let's keep on moving here. Matthew's asking, is there a way to get a hard copy of that Blue Book that I just mentioned? It's a good question. I haven't seen any lying around the office.
Mm-hmm.
You may just have to download it and print it out. Okay. There's a good question here about sub-awardees and charging indirect rates. Let's see. So historically, I believe, and my colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong, we have allowed subcontractors to charge indirect or administrative costs, if they're providing a service. So if you're having an engineering firm, for example, do engineering designs as part of your project, they can charge indirect rates. However, again, the lead partner for on-farm trials projects, we cannot use any on-farm trials funding to cover their indirect or administrative costs. Let's see here. Can on-farm trials funds be used for outreach and education? Leah, you want to attack that one?
So I'll take my first stab at it, and then Corey, I'll lean on you to refine it. I believe they can. I'm under the impression that those would be probably more appropriate funds for the partner match, though.
Yeah, obviously, if a partner needs to go out and recruit producers to participate in their project, that can certainly be charged to technical assistance. If there's technology transfer where, you're at the end of your project, you want to do some field days, that can certainly be charged to technical assistance. As Leah mentioned, if there are things kind of above and beyond that would count as outreach and education, the partner contributions and matching funds should probably cover some of that. Okay. Somebody's asking, do we need multiple locations? Again, we have seen and funded proposals that include anything from as few as 5 farms or 5 producers to as many as 100 or 200. At least that's what they've proposed. These on-farm trials projects must include multiple producers that are going to be implementing these technologies and approaches. Someone's asking if there's going to be a webinar on how to use that 600-page blue book on quantifying greenhouse gas fluxes. If you have particular questions about that, we can point you to some of our experts here at USDA in greenhouse gas quantification methodologies. Just let us know and we can point you in those the direction of those folks. Okay, there's just a lot of questions here and I'm trying to get to as many as we can. We do have a hard stop here at about 3:58. And again, anything we don't get to, we will make sure that we get into our FAQ document here. Let's see. We are a nonprofit that does soil health research, but we also have a farm on site. Can our farm be considered one of the producers? Well, that's a good question. The answer to that is yes, but giving yourself an incentive payment is probably not going to work. The idea behind on-farm trials, again, is to get actual, farmers, ranchers, forest landowners that are out there making a living at farming be a part of these projects. And so can a nonprofit's farm be a part of the project? Sure. Should they be getting incentive payments? No. And should there be a lot more producers involved beyond that farm? Yes. Okay. Karen is asking, Leah, is an application with more producers necessarily more competitive than an application with fewer producers?
I think it's going to depend on the technology or approach that you are proposing these producers use. I think some are more amenable to including multiple producers, that 200 number that Kari threw out, and some the technology is going to be just more expensive or more difficult, and so fewer producers are going to make more sense. So it's kind of a long-winded way to say it's really dependent on what it is you're proposing is implemented on these on-farm trials.
Very good. There's a question here about incentive payments and whether they could be transferred to another producer if one of the original producers drops out. Again, once, in your proposal, folks propose how they intend to provide incentive payments to producers and the makeup of those incentive payments. Once we approve that and we give you a grant agreement, we really expect our partners to manage those incentive payments. And so if you're working with a producer and then they drop out and you need to move on to another one, we certainly just leave that in your court to manage it. Of course, our partners need to work within RCS to ensure that any participating producer that's getting an incentive payment, as Leah mentioned, is eligible with all those different pieces that are critical, including AGI, HEL and wetlands compliance, and NEPA. So something important to keep in mind. Sakti is helpfully noted limited resource farmer or rancher. That is the fourth component of our historically underserved definition. So just to recap that, socially disadvantaged farmers, veteran farmers, beginning farmers, and limited resource farmers or ranchers. Those are our historically underserved producers by the USDA definition. There's a question here about the soil health evaluation and the requirement that there's a 5-year history as part of the evaluation and how that applies when attempting to get new farmers involved. It's a good question. I'm not sure that we have any of our colleagues here from our soil health division on. And Falah, we'll get you an answer to that here in the future. Someone's asking, could carbon credits that farmers receive for implemented practices be considered as part of their incentive payments? The answer to that is yes. Again, it's up to the partners to propose the composition of those incentive payments. Laura made a note here that she's saying, as a general rule, disabled folks are often low income, for which are qualified for HU or historically underserved definition. I'm not even sure that I would say that that's often the case, but again, just the fact that someone is disabled does not qualify them as a historically underserved producer. Again, just pointing to that USDA definition. Does NRCS maintain an inventory of historically underserved producers? The answer to that is no. We do not have a list of historically underserved producers that we can share with potential applicants. Okay, we've got time for just a couple more questions, maybe one or two. Interesting question here about the soil health demo trial applying to crop farmers exclusively, or can poultry farmers apply? I'm not certain how a poultry farmer that doesn't plant crops could apply for the soil health demo trial, but feel free to try to convince me, or us, I should say. Let's see. Okay, we are absolutely running out of time. Someone's asking about, can you expand on what would qualify for the 25% match? There's all sorts of things that could qualify as matching funds. Personnel that partners are putting up salary for to participate in the project. Additional financial assistance or incentive payments to partners. The purchase of equipment. The list goes on and on. There's all sorts of things that partners can contribute to projects that could count as matching funds. And a lot of this, again, is very consistent with other grant programs and 2 CFR 200, the federal regulation that governs CIG and all federal award programs or similar federal award programs. Okay, let's try one more and then we're going to wrap this up. And again, we've got more questions than we can get to, and we will get that FAQ up on the website just as soon as we can. So Eileen's asking, can you tell us more about the goal to incorporate project outcomes into conservation standards? So for those of you familiar with NRCS, we have something in the neighborhood of 170 conservation practice standards. These are the things that govern what we can pay for through our farm bill programs, or at least many of them. So there are things like cover crop or animal waste storage structures, riparian buffers, and things of that nature. Our goal here is to, partially at least, improve our understanding of how those standards and practices and systems benefit producers, how they benefit the environment, and how they benefit producers economically. And all of that information can go into revised standards or updated standards or even new standards. We're required to evaluate and review our conservation practice standards every 5 years. And we're always looking for new and better information to help us update those standards. So that's a little bit about that element of the program. So with that, as we near 4 o'clock here, I'm going to call this good for the moment. Thank you so much for all your questions. And Leah, do you want to say any final words?
No, just thank you again to all the folks who attended today. We appreciate your good questions and your interest in the program. And if there are any follow-up questions that you have, again, specific to your project, feel free to reach out to us at the nrcscig@usda.gov.
Very good. Thank you all, and good luck with your applications, and hopefully we'll see them coming in here by the deadline. Thanks very much.